Over the years, arbitration in the United Kingdom became increasingly to resemble litigation. It's taken over by lawyers, became very, very expensive, became very, very rules-bound, and generally ceased to serve the construction industry as it was originally intended to do. So the Latham Report in the 1990s, which culminated in the Act in 1996, which came into force in 1998, introduced construction adjudication, which Fatima has been talking about briefly, into the UK construction scene. And again, a 28-day process which gives rise to a decision which is binding but is not final. In other words, you have to pay, you argue later, you can take the whole matter to court if you want to. It is designed to be run by people who are sector-specific construction, infrastructure people with a legal background to help them through the process, but it is supposed to be a sector-specific process. What we've seen since 1998 to now, in 27 years, is that adjudication has also become very legalistic, very expensive, and very often runs long beyond the 28 days that it's supposed to operate in. What you've also seen in the UK since the 20-teens is a growing awareness of conflict avoidance as opposed to dispute resolution. So the distinction is this: in court arbitration adjudication, you take a dispute which has crystallized, where the parties have taken their sides, they become entrenched in it, and someone then gives a decision which looks at the evidence and tells the parties what to do. It is a determination process. The groundswell that we've seen across the industry is to move away from that into processes which, as it were, help the parties to stamp out the embers of a growing dispute before it actually catches fire and turns into a big blaze. And the FIDIC idea of a dispute board with various guises does that. It is appointed, it is a standing board, it is there for the duration of the project, and it keeps an eye on what's happening and intervenes to prevent disputes growing into major conflicts which would have to go to adjudication, arbitration, or court. We've been involved in that from the outset. We have seen difficulties with dispute boards, to be honest. One of the major difficulties is that you appoint 3 people at the beginning of a long project. They have a certain skill set. What happens during the course of the project is that disputes arise which involve expertise outside of their skills, and they then have to use expert witnesses, which slightly defeats the object of having a dispute board in the first place. Many people perceive dispute boards to be expensive. And always the figure is given that in the context of the total cost of the project, the amount of dispute board is minute, and nonetheless their perception remains that having 3 people on salary for the duration is an expensive process. We have had feedback over the years about dispute boards becoming part of the furniture, and people getting to know the individuals involved and being able to manipulate those individuals. We have a dispute board that has given a series of decisions which tend to favour the client. Very quickly the contractors begin to see the dispute board as being a tool of the client, or vice versa. So there are reasons why. In a place like Abu Dhabi, when you're looking at 400-odd capital works projects, if you were to put a 3-person dispute board in each one of those, you would battle to find people who are not conflicted. You've got a limited number of clients, you have a limited number of contractors, you have a limited number of consultants. Everybody knows everybody else, and everybody else has got connections. So to find the necessary people in a smaller jurisdiction is a massive challenge. Our ICO's response to this, and this is where we've been working with APIC and where we are now piloting, is to produce the conflict avoidance process, where we do 2 things. We work with the parties at the outset to identify where we think disputes are likely to arise, and we create a project panel of people who have the necessary skills to deal with them. They are then put on ice, as it were. We then wait for a particular matter to arise, at which point either the client or the contractor comes to our ICS as an independent, impartial, third-party institution. We then work with the clients and we appoint a conflict avoidance panel. That panel then works to effectively act through evaluative mediation, to talk to the clients, goes on to perform a neutral evaluation, expert determination, generally will reduce the matters to a litigation